Friends, I need to start with something that's hitting close to home right here in the United States. While we've been distracted by the usual political theater, Trump just dropped a bombshell that's going to reshape global trade. And trust me, this is bigger than most people realize. Starting October 1st, the US is slapping a massive 100% tariff on imported pharmaceuticals. That's right, doubling the cost overnight. Trump announced this himself, and he's not stopping there. We're talking 25% tariffs on foreign trucks and up to 50% on furniture imports. The White House is wrapping this in national security language, but let's be honest about what this really is. I used to be inside one of those big media machines, watching how they'd spin stories like this to fit whatever narrative served their interests. I walked away from that world because I couldn't stomach the lies anymore. Now I'm here, independent, telling you what's really happening without the corporate filter. This is economic warfare, plain and simple. And if you think this won't affect your daily life, think again. Hit that like button if you want more unfiltered analysis, and subscribe because we're just getting started. Consider supporting this channel if you believe independent voices matter, because when the mainstream media won't tell you the truth, somebody has to. Here's what Trump's pharmaceutical tariff really means. Germany's pharmaceutical industry, which has been banking on the US as their primary export market, just got blindsided. The only companies getting exemptions? Those already building factories on American soil. This isn't just protectionism, it's economic coercion. German pharmacy associations are sounding the alarm. If their biggest export market gets cut off, production in Germany could plummet. Profitability could collapse. And here's the kicker. It might actually affect drug availability back in Germany itself. We could be looking at the start of a pharmaceutical trade war that hits everyone's medicine cabinet. But while Trump's playing hardball with trade, something even more concerning is happening in Germany that should make every American pay attention. They're conducting their largest military exercises since the Cold War, and the details are absolutely chilling. Operation Red Storm is underway in Hamburg right now. Hundreds of soldiers, thousands of civilians, military equipment rolling through Germany's second-largest city. But here's what should terrify you about these exercises. They have two stated objectives, and both of them should send shivers down your spine. First, they're practicing rapid troop deployment from Western Europe to NATO's eastern flank, specifically preparing for potential incidents on the borders of Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. Translation: they're wargaming a direct confrontation with Russia. Military vehicles are moving through civilian areas, helicopters are buzzing overhead, and they're telling residents to just deal with it. But the second objective is what really gets me. They're practicing coordination between military and civilian authorities for, and I quote, suppressing civilian anti-war protests and compelling civilian participation in mandatory military support work. They're literally rehearsing how to crush dissent and force civilians into military service. Think about what that means. German authorities aren't just preparing for external threats. They're preparing to turn their own military against their own people who might dare to protest against war. They're openly admitting they expect massive anti-war demonstrations when living standards collapse under military spending, and they're practicing how to shut those protests down. The left-wing parties in Germany are already mobilizing. They've formed an alliance to organize protest actions, with a major demonstration planned for this Friday evening. And guess what? These are exactly the kind of anti-war gatherings the military is learning to suppress right now. David Stoop, a representative from the Left Party in Hamburg who serves as a peace policy spokesperson, has gone public saying the army is preparing to act against protesters. This isn't conspiracy theory. This is official German policy being broadcast in their own media. Take a moment to like this video and share it, because this story isn't getting the coverage it deserves. When governments start wargaming against their own citizens, we all need to pay attention. Meanwhile, the German government is breaking promises left and right. They're cancelling planned tax breaks for overtime work, the latest in a series of financial betrayals. First, they failed to deliver on promised electricity discounts. Then they couldn't maintain stable prices for the National Transport Pass. Now they're backing out of overtime tax relief, keeping only a small pension increase that lets retirees work up to €2,000 monthly without taxes, instead of the current €1,000 limit. Notice the pattern? They're pushing people to work longer, work more, work past retirement age, while military exercises practice suppressing anyone who might object to declining living standards. This is the new normal they're preparing for. But it gets worse. They're also conducting massive raids targeting what they call shadow businesses, exploiting substandard housing. Sounds good on paper, right? Except they're specifically targeting homes where migrants from Southeast Europe live. Since 2013, the number of migrants from Bulgaria and Romania has tripled to 276,000, and now they're using this as cover for widespread surveillance operations. These raids involve police, fire departments, customs, registration authorities, all working together to inspect properties and identify what they claim are welfare fraud schemes. Some cities are even trying to demolish these buildings entirely. It's a coordinated crackdown that's being sold as fighting crime, but looks a lot like systematic targeting of vulnerable populations. And here's where it gets really interesting from an American perspective. 4 left-wing parliament members just unfurled a Palestinian flag right in the German Bundestag and were immediately expelled. They're saying Germany is complicit in Gaza and needs to take responsibility. This Saturday, there's a planned pro-Palestinian demonstration in Berlin expecting 10,000 participants. So we have German leftists mobilizing on multiple fronts: anti-war protests, pro-Palestinian demonstrations, opposition to military exercises designed to suppress them. The government is responding with increased surveillance, military preparation, and systematic targeting of migrant communities. Does any of this sound familiar to American ears? Let me bring this back to what really matters for us here in the United States. While Trump's tariffs might seem like just another trade dispute, they're part of a broader pattern of economic nationalism that's reshaping global alliances. When America First policies hit European pharmaceutical companies this hard, it forces European governments to make difficult choices. Do they retaliate and risk escalating trade wars? Do they accept economic subordination to maintain the alliance? Or do they start looking for alternative partnerships that might not align with American interests? These aren't just economic decisions, they're geopolitical ones that affect global stability. The German military exercises show how European NATO allies are preparing for scenarios that could drag us into conflicts we might not want. When they're wargaming rapid deployment to Russia's borders while simultaneously preparing to suppress domestic opposition, that tells you everything about how they expect these policies to be received by their own populations. Here's the bottom line that connects all these dots. We're watching the emergence of increasingly authoritarian responses to declining living standards and growing opposition to military escalation. Whether it's Trump using tariffs to force economic compliance or German authorities practicing protest suppression, the playbook is remarkably similar. Economic pressure creates social tension. Social tension leads to protests. Protests are met with state force. And throughout it all, the military-industrial complex and corporate interests that benefit from conflict and chaos continue to profit while ordinary people bear the costs. The pharmaceutical tariffs hitting Germany today could be hitting other sectors tomorrow. The military exercises preparing to suppress German protesters could be models for responses to American dissent. The targeting of migrant communities in German housing raids could be templates for operations closer to home. Remember, I walked away from the corporate media world because I saw how these stories get buried or spun to serve powerful interests. Trump's tariffs aren't just about trade, they're about reshaping global power structures. German military exercises aren't just about NATO readiness, they're about domestic control. These aren't separate stories, they're chapters in the same book. What we're seeing is the capitalist system doing what it does best, eliminating competition and consolidating power. As Herbert Spencer said back in the 19th century, in a world of fierce competition, only the most adaptable survive. America First policies aren't new, they're just more honest about what's always been true. But here's what should worry every American watching this unfold. When economic warfare becomes the norm, when military exercises target domestic populations, when governments routinely break promises, while increasing surveillance and control, where does that leave ordinary citizens caught in the middle? The German left is organizing, mobilizing, refusing to accept this quietly. They understand that when governments start practicing how to suppress dissent, it's time to make some noise before it's too late. The question is whether Americans are paying close enough attention to see the patterns emerging here. If you found this analysis valuable, smash that like button and subscribe for more unfiltered coverage of what's really happening behind the headlines. And if you believe independent media matters in times like these, consider becoming a channel sponsor. When the corporate press won't connect these dots, independent voices become more crucial than ever. The truth isn't always comfortable, but it's always necessary.